My video for April the 26th, 2020 is video number 3417. The title is Reconnecting with an Old Friend. Decades ago, I lived in Pennsylvania, part of that time with one of my friends who was a soil scientist for a government agency. When I moved out west to Utah, I lost touch with him, but he came to mind a while back as I was praying. I decided to look for him. I did find an address, but no phone number. So I sent him a letter. He called me last evening and we talked a good while about old times and reflected on things going on uh, now in this insane world. I have new instead of that now. I don't know how I did that, but I did it. Anyway, back when my family and I lived in his large house, I had a radio program called Be Not Deceived. Many of those programs were live on WTTC in Towanda, Pennsylvania. He is still very much a Christian and, like me, has explored many things. Frankly, I was surprised that he is 14 years older than me, but he seems pretty sharp. At any rate, both of us agree that what is happening now is insane. It's even worse in Colorado, where he has lived for decades. He recommended that I look up Pastor Tim Keller. I did and found one quote in his article quite interesting and apropos. Yes, I will share it. So please stay on board with me here. Oh, let's see if I can get that computer to get a little closer so I can read it. Tim Keller is a 69-year-old retired pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City, although my friend told me he's actually was at a Pennsylvania church, a couple of smaller areas in Pennsylvania before he went to New York City. But anyway, he said there's a lot of incentive to reach out to people. If you get involved with those of different religions and beliefs, it can be costly. There will be misunderstandings and you'll be vilified, and you may see very little for your effort. I can actually relate to that, having had many experiences with people of various religious beliefs over the course of my life. And some can be extremely dogmatic. And if you don't see it their way, well, you're just simply wrong. And I recently had to block one of my old friends who was actually a nemesis, as I said in a Facebook post, because he all of a sudden went on a rant, just criticizing a lot of the things that I believe in. And there was a lot of dialogue coming up. And one of my other friends, whom I did not end up blocking, also piped in. And there's a lot of questions going on, folks. A lot of people are looking at things now that we're shut in and restricted in our ability to meet with other people face to face. I mean, the meetings have been all but, absolutely closed. I mean, you just can't have meetings with more than a few people. And even that's a challenge where I live. We did have one meeting where we met in one of the apartment buildings where we had six or eight people maybe I think there were 8 people in the room, which was pretty, it's not a large room. So that was a pretty crowded room. In any case, it was good to connect with my old friend, Bob. As I said, there was a period of time when I lived in Towanda, Pennsylvania, that my wife and children and I actually, he invited us into his apartment, and he was very active in the Presbyterian Church at that time. And I was in the Assembly of God Church, but we had many meetings together, and we were able to build a lot of bridges. And as I said, I had a radio program, and I think it started out that I was recording it for 15 minutes, And then I started going live for 25 minutes. That was considered a half an hour because they always had a 5-minute break for news in between programs. But it was, I can't remember if it was just before or just after Billy Graham that Ron Van Dyke was on the Be Not Deceived program. And I became friends with the lady who was she worked for WTTC, and I think her father was one of the principals in that for that radio station. I don't really remember her name, and I forget a lot of things, but I was very happy, as I said, to connect with my old friend Bob, and surprised, as I said, also that he's so many years older than I am. I didn't remember that there was that big an age gap. I thought we were much closer together in age. In any case, it's time for all of us to start paying attention. Now, in Colorado, they have a Democratic governor, and a lot of the Democratic states especially have really locked down people tremendously. And I watched a video earlier of a Chicago politician who is saying that in Chicago, the new shots, when they are available, will be mandatory. They will not be, there will be no freedom to say no. Everybody that's in Chicago must get the new shots. And this is just more of the insanity that's going on, where they are blatantly, many of the politicians are blatantly taking away our human rights to make decisions for ourselves and imposing terrible, terrible things on us, including locking us in our own homes, or doing the best they can to do that, and having to wear masks. Like I said, I have to I keep my little bandana that I put across my face. I put that on when I'm going out. I have it hanging on the doorknob. And of course, I take it off as soon as I get on the elevator, but I hang it on the doorknob so that I remember to take it with me, so that when they say, "Where's your mask?" I can pull my mask up and sort of, well, I don't always laugh out loud to them, but my thought is, this is so crazy. Oh, but I'll tell you, the one thing that we do have is, we do have some friends that we can still relate to even after decades of not being in contact with each other. And that's what I learned from my conversation with my friend Bob. You know, he's like me. He thinks outside the box. He explores. He hasn't gone quite as far out as I have in going to other religions, although he does say he has a lot of respect for Buddhism. And of course, I do as well, but the Buddhist leader of the Buddhist group that I was going to, as I've said in other videos, wanted to start charging $20 for non-members, and I'm not a joiner as far as becoming an official member of anything. So I dropped completely out of that Buddhist group, and just basically was going to a Hindu meeting every week as my spiritual family. But I've had a lot of experience with a lot of different Christian denominations and people of various viewpoints. And as I said, it was really nice being able to connect with an old friend and listen to some of the material that he recommended from Pastor Tim Keller. There's a lot of good things happening. It's just harder to stay in touch sometimes, and I'm glad I was able to make this reconnection that I've mentioned here in this video with my old friend Bob. I was going to say his last name, but I really don't want to do that. Thank you folks again for listening, and namaste.